How's everybody doing?
Good morning.
Yeah, well, first off, having heard him mention it a couple times, want to congratulate Kwesi on getting married this summer. It was interesting to hear him drop my wife a couple times there. It was noted on my part, so figured we could start out with that. That'll stay between us, between the two of us. But but in all seriousness, I mean, I could not be more excited for day one of training camp, the opportunity, first and foremost, just how, finally getting a time to kind of get away this summer and reflect a little bit about a lot of things. You think first and foremost how grateful you are for the opportunity, this organization, our ownership, all the getting to work side by side with Kwesi, but then even more so, getting to hire the coaching staff that I was able to hire. And then when the spring gets going, to really dive in with these players and start to learn the type of people, the type of leaders, the type of human beings we have on this roster. Forget the fact that I feel like we have a very good competitive roster that we can do a lot of things with, but just the actual attempting to build a culture, attempting to do it the way you've envisioned, and having people so on board with that, having your team so on board with that, the look in their eye when you stand in front of them. I can't wait to do it this afternoon for the first time again this fall. And it's just, right about that time, you start to feel relaxed. You start to feel like, hey, 4th of July hits. I was ready to get back to work right then and there, just for my excitement of being around these guys. And then leading into training camp, where we've talked a lot about the connection with fans. I think, I can remember personal moments throughout my childhood visiting certain teams' training camps where the connection you have with players and coaches, and it's really unlike any other opportunity. So to have Saturday and the back to football around the league and have our day be here in front of our great fans and welcome them, and the 14 opportunities we'll have to do that. That's what I'm excited about, getting to prepare our team for this season, but doing it in a way where we can really bring people together and hopefully get our fans really excited about what we're doing. Training camp's going to kind of be, in my opinion, the next phase. I'll talk to our team later today about the learning phase, the teaching phase in the spring. We really challenged our guys, as you guys have heard me say before, above the neck, just meaning that we were going to make sure we taught and they learned and they really were able to absorb the different things we're asking them to do. But now we move into the competition phase, and we're building our team. We're building what we're going to become for 2022. And I think that's going to be a thing that plays out over a lot of different positions over the entire month, different opportunities for a lot of guys, while still making sure we keep it about the technique and the fundamentals and the details of kind of why we do what we do. But I'm very, very excited, like I said, and appreciate you guys being out. It's good to see all you guys as well. But I hopefully the next few times we're talking out on that grass like we did in the spring, coming off the football field with a lot of good things to talk about. But with that, I'll open it up to you guys.
How do you feel just kind of personally? You're a head coach for the first time, and now it's kind of like for real, training camp starts, that sort of thing. I don't know if that was a honeymoon during the spring or what, but just kind of starting for real now.
Yeah, I'd like to say you have a lot of time to sit back once we get going and really think about those things. But, the way my mind works, I'm moving 1,000 miles an hour on to the next, whether it's a team setting, an offense setting, or just with our coaching staff or anyone around the building. It's just constantly, I've clicked into gear and I'm ready to roll.
Do they know you based on your off-season, your OTAs and all that, or are they still getting to know you and they haven't seen the full Monte, so to speak?
No, I think that's one of the things that mean a lot to me because, I am who I am on a daily basis, and I have been from the very moment I stepped in front of our team and put together our coaching staff. And that consistency is what I strive for. So I hope the answer to that question is yes, they know me. They know what to expect. They know I'm going to be honest with them. They know that I'm always going to stand out in front and lead and challenge our leadership and challenge our players to be right by my side as we attack every challenge that comes our way. I mean, a lot of the great things that came from last year for me, the experiences of success, and that was all great. But I think the adversity and overcoming some adversity that hits inevitably for every team in this league over a 17-game season, that's what we're building. That's what you try to preach, consistency. That's what you try to preach, why culture matters. Why does it matter? Because when things get hard, that's what you're going to rely on, and rely on the guy next to you. And hopefully our team feels that way about me, leading the charge this year. And we just continue that process, and we just now get into a world where we could do it every single day and have a plan from here on out through the rest of training camp to get ready to roll.
Kevin, will you have Irv Smith at full go starting tomorrow, or what is his status physically?
Yeah, my expectation, especially Irv was one of the guys we brought in early, and just have to give Irv a ton of credit. Talking to Tyler and Uriah, Josh and the strength, with the strength program. Talk about a guy that put in some work coming out of the spring. I thought he had a good spring for what he was able to do for us. He was great in the classroom. He was great in that walk-through, jog-through setting. But then to see him moving around yesterday, we got out on the grass with those early report guys. You can tell the work's been put in. You can tell there's a real mindset for Irv, and I'm really excited about him. So we're expecting him to be full to start. As always, you guys know we'll take each thing that kind of comes up day by day, circle up with Uriah and Tyler and Kwesi, and we'll have the best plan for Irv himself to, with a mindset on that opening game.
How will you judge whether this has been a good, productive training camp, or maybe one you didn't get everything out of you wanted?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question, because I think you always want to be making sure you're teaching, you're practicing, and then you're evaluating to improve for the next day. So you have to be critical about things that aren't where you want them to be, but also with that kind of mindset that it doesn't have to be perfect day one, but we have to have the idea and the systems built that these guys understand the why, and then we give them the what behind kind of how we're going to do things, so that when it's not to that standard, it's not to what we expect. Sometimes they're the first ones to point it out, but ultimately that's our job as coaches, to make sure, from a minute-to-minute, detail-to-detail basis, in and out of the huddle, all the little things bleed into the bigger philosophical things as far as what we're trying to get accomplished. And so it's a mix of both. But I think my job's to make sure I have the big picture mindset, let our coordinators and coaches continue to really get granular with their sides of the ball and their position groups.
Other than the two guys.
When you're doing a competitive, Kevin, you're doing a competitive rebuild in the NFC North. Obviously, you look at long-term, short-term. How much of a target, a goal, do you put on what Aaron Rodgers, Packers are doing, and then Matt LaFleur is now he's the old grizzled guy of the division.
Yeah, I think obviously they have the results have really spoke for themselves, and the success that those guys have had, and I got so much respect for obviously Aaron as a player and a leader of that organization for a really long time, and I have a relationship with Matt that, like a lot of guys that have coached with Sean, we come from a similar foundation. But I think it's just something where we work every single day to be the best version of ourselves as the Minnesota Vikings, and we know everybody in our division's doing the same thing. So we don't get any credit for trying. We don't get any credit, for showing up every day and thinking, ultimately we're, any ahead of any team in our division. But what I do know is we've got a great plan to be the best version of this team when we break camp, and it just so happens that we open up with a great division opponent at home that we're really excited about. But we got a lot of work to do before we feel like we've earned the right to go into that game with the confidence I think we'll have.
How good is your relationship with Matt?
It doesn't. I mean, we've coached against each other before, and it doesn't at this point.
Hey, Kevin, you spoke in the spring just about not wanting to take unnecessary risks when it came to the physicality part. With the 9 or so padded practices you got here, what's your philosophy on approaching those? Is that going to be kind of full go and not any jog through speed?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something I've thought long and hard about. But in my opinion, you guys will hear me say this phrase a couple times: when we're going, we got to go. And we'll do our due diligence through the whole month of the volume of work we put in. But when we put those pads on, it's just not that many opportunities. So to prepare your team and for our individual players, individual phases of offense, defense, and special teams to feel prepared, there's no other way than to go full, compete, good on good. We'll do plenty of that work, as well as, the situational emphasis that we've got planned out through the whole camp. It's all built on making sure by the time we cut our roster down to 53, we're ready to get in preparation mode for our first opponent.
Kevin, other than the two guys obviously already put on the PUP list, anybody else you think might not start fall in training camp?
Nope. Obviously, those two guys, Ryan and Blake, will start on the PUP, and we'll treat their circumstances day by day. And everyone else, it's the same thing. And we're constantly going to be managing, making sure for those. I believe by my count, there's 11 padded practice opportunities, including a couple of opportunities to joint practice with the 49ers, which will be huge for our team. But when we have those days, the goal will be to have as many of our guys up and ready to roll as possible.
Marsetti's looking okay?
He's looking great. He's another guy, in addition to Irv, I should single out just because, and Johnny Munt was another guy. But just thinking about yesterday, you walk out on the field and you see these guys that, you can't fake it. You can't fake it when, they were challenged, a lot of those guys, when we left here 5-6 weeks ago, and then to hear the progress throughout the summer, but then to see it, I'm really excited about the work those guys put in.
Yeah, as you're going through especially the padded practices, how much weight do you put on those as an evaluation tool as you guys are sitting down to make roster decisions towards the end of August?
Yeah, we have to evaluate everything. We're really not in the mode now. Like I said, I told our team at the end of the spring, the competition phase will start, and that goes for really every guy on our roster. We want those guys feeling those situations. Sometimes, for an established player, a guy that's a starter on your team, it's the competition with the other side. It's maybe that one-on-one matchup between a Brian O'Neill and Zadarius Smith. It's how do they push each other by that competition to make themselves better. And like I said, the opportunities in those 11 padded practices are great for our team and our players, but we got to find a way to replicate that, and still take care of one another when maybe we aren't full padded and kind of those full sessions. So every time we step out on the grass from here on out, in my opinion, we've got to have a plan to accomplish real tangible things while we continue to build.
Evan, when you think about that competition, what do you need to see from rookies to feel comfortable with them maybe getting that shot to make a bid at a starting role?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's surprising them and giving them opportunities, before maybe we even see anything, but anything other than, the habits in the classroom and the habits study, and you can tell a guy knows what to do. Now we can feel comfortable, turning him loose to try to compete in those settings, especially in the ones versus one settings, because ultimately it's something that every young player in this league, especially our rookies, we'll want to see them do. But they'll also get a ton of opportunities side by side with one another, some of our other young players. And each and every one of those guys has an opportunity to really carve out their role. There's really not very many defined things right now. We're still figuring out how we're going to deploy our personnel, and our team will decide that. Our players will decide that based upon, a lot of different factors. But ultimately, those rookies and our veterans, every single day, the opportunities we give them, we're really mixing and matching and really seeing a lot of different ways that we could ultimately be in an attack mode football team in all three phases.
Kevin, how do you see the process working with you and Kwesi in terms of the roster decisions and the final 53 and how you evaluate where this team is and how individual players have progressed as the season approaches?
Yeah, it's a constant evolving thing. I mean, we're side by side, day in and day out, constantly talking about, very small details, very small things. Every aspect of our roster is a big deal. It's a big deal, obviously, to how we're putting together the team, the depth in certain areas, and the identities of our offense and defense as they, we kind of know our philosophies, but I think an identity of those phases comes together pretty organically as your team builds itself throughout training camp, which I'm excited about, because then, not only our staff, but the personnel staff, getting together with Kwesi and that collaboration that we've used that word a lot, it's because it's real. There's really not much more to it than constant communication and making sure that, we're on the same page every step of the way, and that goes both ways with him and I.
Last couple questions.
When it comes to making kind of those final decisions on the 53, there's going to be disagreements between you and the rest of the staff.
Yep.
How will you kind of, let's say you have a gut feeling on a player, Kwesi has a series of charts that tell you what kind of the probabilistic outcomes are for that player. They kind of disagree on the direction that you go in. How do you resolve that kind of conflict?
Yeah, the good thing is those, conflicts and those discussions, we don't wait to have those until, the day before, the week before. We've talked a lot about our roster, the players we've acquired, what it looks like to allow fair and open competition at certain spots. And then we build a plan accordingly for that. So when that time comes, I think it'll be a process that him and I are going to be prepared for. Our staffs will be prepared for. And the best part about it is, an argument or a discussion doesn't necessarily need to be a combative thing. It's a healthy part of the discussion and communication to get the best possible 53 guys and ultimately our practice squad together to put our team in position to have the most success we can.
The Friday practice at US Bank, is there something specific you're trying to get out of being down there that day?
Yeah, it was really one of the real few opportunities we could get in before, obviously we'll host the Niners in our second preseason game, but it's as much for anything, for our coaching staff or to simulate, maybe where guys will be for the games. We'll have, we'll test some headset equipment. We'll make sure guys are comfortable. Some of our new players will see, a lot of them have seen it, but we'll see the locker room and just get a chance in the ramp-up period, which is very important, to just get those guys acclimated to US Bank Stadium and us as coaches included, so we can have a real clean and precise plan for our one preseason opportunity that we'll get there.
Kwesi mentioned having some priors in place when evaluating players, having the prior knowledge before they were acquired. How do you balance that against having an open and fair competition when one player might have a stronger set of priors but maybe didn't perform as strongly in camp?
Yeah, I think we gotta, you acquire players a lot of times from the priors, and then you get them here and you see the fit, and then you try to, if it's, if there's areas where we need to improve or a young player needs to improve, that's what we're here for, to coach and actively coach to help players improve. And that's what we've got a plan for all 90 guys on our roster right now, how they fit, how we need to see them compete, and then ultimately how much they'll play in the preseason games, which will help them get the opportunity. All you want, having been a former player myself and a guy down the line on the depth chart, all you want is in the end to be given a fair opportunity and to be able to trust the fact that you've been coached and given every opportunity to be at your absolute best when that ultimate decision is going to be made on your future. And my job and Kwesi's job is working together to form the best possible roster that we can to help us win football games, but then also allowing our players to feel that and understand the communication of, hey, this is what we need you to do. This is the goal for you individually, collectively as an offense, defense, and special teams, and then here are our team goals for training camp. And if you communicate all those things, I think everything kind of comes in pretty clear.
Last question?
Do you have a running list of questions that you need to still answer about the team? What's it like when you feel like you have answered that question, and where do you go from there?
Yeah, I think I do, and I think as we go through the different phases of camp, the ramp up period, these first 4 days leading into Saturday, when we welcome our fans, which we're, like I said, very excited about, will be understanding that I've kind of broken up our training camp into some different phases, and I want our team to know, kind of what phase we're in, and then I think we can actively, try to answer some of those questions and feel good about the outcomes. Thank you, guys. Excited to see everybody.